We do have our second guest ready to rock and join us right now. Craig Sandlin is here. And Craig, certainly appreciate you stopping by as always. And certainly a big week this week for Cincinnati. We talked about it on the live show, and I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Reed. You came on the live show with us, and we chopped it up with the Joe Flacco trade, obviously. Now you've had a couple of days. You've slept on it. What are your overall thoughts of the trade, and how you feeling going into this game on Sunday at Lambeau?
I mean, I was excited when the trade went down, Stone, and then I saw two videos yesterday of Joe Flacco hurling beautiful balls downfield to his guys, Andre Yoshivas, a couple others. I'm ready to go, man. I respect Jake Browning. I watched his interview yesterday after practice and heard him talk about this whole process and what went down, and understand he's frustrated, but so are us fans. And this team came into 2025 with Super Bowl expectations, and they're not meeting those expectations right now. And unfortunately for Jake Browning, that meant that the Bengals felt they needed to go out and make a move. And Joe Flacco, I think, is a good fit. And you heard from Chase Brown yesterday and how excited he was. You could see how giddy he was talking about Joe Flacco after his first practice, about how smart he came off, how intelligent he was, taking in the plays and just being able to rattle them right back off, as called it in the huddle. Those are the types of things you're looking for in a leader and someone that's new to the locker room, to really just gain that respect right away. And it is very clear that Joe Flacco has already done that in this Bengals locker room.
For me, I think, we threw around a bunch of names on the show about guys they could potentially try to trade for. And the hot name for me at the time was Jameis Winston. I think a lot of people probably shared that same mindset there as well. Obviously, he's got a big arm. He was a starter for a really long time in Tampa. He's a fun guy, right? You think he might fit into the locker room really well, what have you. But as time has gone on, I'm kind of realizing that, I think this is the right call here for Joe Flacco. There's a lot that comes with Jameis Winston, right? Everything he says is basically turns into a soundbite somewhere. And Joe Flacco is very much a no-nonsense, 40 years of age, family man, all about football guy. And I think that'll, kind of help Cincinnati fly under the radar a little bit. Obviously, nationally, people are recognizing the fact that Cincinnati made a move for a quarterback, and Joe Flacco is going to be the starter. But I feel like he is the best fit for this team out of all the potential guys now that this thing has happened, and we kind of can look back on it and evaluate all the potential options that Cincinnati had. A couple of days ago, there was the report from Diana Russini that the Bengals didn't even reach out to the New York Giants and Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Are you okay with that, or do you wish they would have done their due diligence on those guys as well?
No, I'm perfectly fine with it. Yeah. Both of those guys are walking memes, and
right.
you talk about all the names. It's funny, all the names that have been thrown around, right? You've got Jameis and Russell, two guys who at this point in their careers are best known for being walking memes. You got a guy in Drew Lock who's best known for rapping on the sideline, and you have a guy in Sam Howell who's best known for looking good. So at this point, I'll take a Super Bowl winning quarterback even at age 40 over those four guys at this point in their careers. And yeah, I mean, certainly the Cincinnati Bengals and Zach Taylor, I don't know that that's really what they're looking for this locker room. They're looking for someone to come in and command the locker room, gain some respect, and lead this team to a position where hopefully Joe Burrow can come back later in the season and lead them into the playoffs, right? And I have no idea what Jake Browning's leadership is like. I really don't. We haven't really seen that on display a whole lot. But already you're hearing stories about Joe Flacco's leadership and how respected he is in the locker room. And yeah, it's a difficult decision for Zach Taylor. It's a tough transition for this offense to go through. But at the end of the day, I talked about it when the trade went through, and that not only do I think Joe Flacco is a good fit physically in terms of what he can do with the football, but I just think his intelligence can elevate this offense to another level that we haven't been able to see with Jake Browning right now. And that's not a knock against Jake Browning per se. I just think that Joe Flacco brings something different to this offense, and the ability to read defenses pre-snap, set his offensive line up for success, and make sure that he's making the appropriate progressions as he's looking to throw the ball downfield. We saw at the end of the game on Sunday where Jake Browning completely missed a blitz. We saw, as has been mentioned already in this show, the scenarios where They had 5 guys blocking against a 3-man rush, and 2 men somehow found their way to be free for a sack. Those all, yes, absolutely have to do with the offensive line, and they have to be better. But the amount of communication that happens pre-snap between the quarterback and his offensive line to make sure that they are in the best position to succeed and seeing the same things that the quarterback is seeing ultimately leads to the offensive success that you're looking for. And for this team right now, they need someone who's able to do that and put them in a good position, because this offensive line hasn't been good and Jake Browning hasn't been able to make the throws that are necessary, and certainly hasn't shown an ability to go through his progressions. We saw it during the live stream on Sunday, which I had the joy of broadcasting as, half the time I could just sit there and say, all right, he's looking towards T, he throws towards T, incomplete to T. Like, it just was so many times over and over where he just went to his first read and he stayed on his first read, and that was it. And it allowed the defense to really key in on what Jake Browning was trying to do. And I expect that Joe Flacco won't necessarily be that. The other thing that's interesting, Stone, that I don't yet know what to expect, obviously, but we saw during the open portion of practice yesterday, Joe Flacco working under center, working on play action pass drills. I don't know necessarily if that's just how Joe Flacco goes through his warm-ups and his progression to get ready for a practice, but I also don't know that Zach Taylor's not trying to do what Joe Flacco wants to do. We heard him talk about Jake Browning and how Jake Browning wants to do similar things to what Joe Burrow wants to do, and how Zach is trying to put together a game plan that fits what the quarterback's room wants to do. Well, Joe Flacco doesn't want to sit back in shotgun. He wants to be under center. He wants to run play action. He wants to set up the run. He wants to have other things on this offense that allow him to keep the defense off key, right? So now we're looking at an offensive structure that has historically not been under center, has historically not run a whole lot of play action pass. Hell, Chase Brown had 8 carries in Sunday's loss to the Lions. So it'll be interesting to see how Zach Taylor adjusts to Joe Flacco just as much as how Joe Flacco adjusts to this new offense.
Trace made a really good point yesterday kind of about that, because I think it's pretty obvious that Joe Flacco, he'll be here the rest of this year, but probably not going to be here next year, right? And Trace was saying that it'd be really interesting to know what Joe Flacco is going to say about this team, and specifically Zach Taylor when he's done playing here, because he's going to give you a completely honest, transparent response as to what it's like playing for Zach Taylor, and how good of a play caller / head coach that he really is. And there's been lots of question marks, rightfully so, around Zach Taylor. What's your confidence that he can put Joe Flacco in a position to succeed, and as you mentioned, maybe cater to some of the strengths of Flacco that could ultimately help this offense?
Yeah, I certainly think that that's going to be an interesting storyline throughout the year. I also think one of the interesting storylines is, what is Joe Flacco going to teach Zach Taylor about what this offense can be, right? So if Joe Flacco comes in here and wants to implement a little bit more of his style of offense in terms of being under center and running the ball and play action pass, does that then affect the way Zach Taylor calls a game moving forward, right? Zach Taylor is seemingly a very player favored coach. He wants to do what the players want to do. Can Joe Flacco come in here and almost serve as a mentor to Joe Burrow a little bit and to Zach Taylor in terms of how do we take this next step in this offense? And maybe it is a case of needing to diversify your looks. We heard for years about how the Bengals want to be multiple, quote unquote, multiple. And then you hear this week from Jamar Chase, and maybe the quote is taken out of context a little bit, but you hear him say how the defenses know what's coming. And the comment was mainly geared towards the fact that the ball is either going to Tee Higgins or Jamar Chase more than anything else. But Joe Flacco loves his tight ends, right? So this should very heavily benefit Noah Fant and Mike Gesicki. He likes being under center. He likes this play action pass, and he likes to spread the ball out. And so Jake Browning, who heavily relied on his top 2 guys, and the defenses were able to key on that, that may not be the case with Joe Flacco. He'll be a little bit more efficient with the ball, better reads, and be able to dump it off. And so that learning from Joe Flacco is also going to be beneficial for Zach Taylor. What are we going to hear from Zach Taylor at the end of the year about what he learned from Joe Flacco? And if and when Joe Burrow comes back in 2025, how is the offensive play calling different, if at all, compared to when Joe Burrow started weeks 1 and 2.
And Craig, real quickly before we let you go, do want to kind of talk specifically here about this matchup with Green Bay. Obviously, this is a really, really good football team. I picked this to be the Super Bowl matchup. Actually, the Bengals and the Packers. One team definitely probably not getting there here at this point, but it's a Packers team that's coming off a bye. LaFleur off a bye, has the extra time to prepare, obviously, and it's kind of been a disappointing stretch here over the course of the past couple of weeks for Green Bay as they dropped the game to Joe Flacco, obviously, low-scoring game in Cleveland, and then you pride yourself on having a really good defense, but then you give up 40 points to the Dallas Cowboys and tie Dak Prescott. This is a team that's scoring 26 points per game, which is ninth in the NFL, and they also have the best third down offense in the NFL. So the Bengals certainly have their hands full in this matchup. I think a guy to really key in on is Tucker Kraft at that tight end spot. The Bengals historically have really struggled guarding tight ends, and he's kind of been their one, right? I mean, they've kind of have a multitude of different receivers that they go to and have the ability to be explosive, but they don't really have that wide receiver one. It seems like their best pass catcher right now is Tucker Kraft. What are some of the keys to victory and, guys, I guess the blueprint for you if Cincinnati is able to pull off this upset? What are some of the things that need to go their way against a really good Green Bay team?
Well, I love your call on Tucker Kraft. We just saw the Bengals give up 5 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown to Sam Laporta. I mean, this defense has continually struggled to guard tight ends in pass protection, right? So certainly going to have to key in on that. But I'm looking on the offensive side of the ball here, and I'm looking at how do you stop Rashan Gary and how do you stop Micah Parsons? Because if you can't stop those two, then Joe Flacco doesn't have a chance to begin with, right? So how is Joe Flacco, how's this offensive line, and how is Zach Taylor going to set up this offense for success when you have guys like Quay Walker on the other side, Xavier McKinney on the other side, just waiting to either sack Joe Flacco or pick him off in the secondary? I think more so than anything else, the offense is going to be the real question, and can they score points? I understand what Reed's saying and how people watched the Cincinnati Bengals against the Lions and acted like they were, the 2002 Ravens, I think is the team that he ultimately selected. But the truth of the matter is that defense is much better and has been much better this year, despite the points that they've allowed. You look at this Detroit game and they gave up 14 plus points on short fields. And so this is a game that the Bengals should have been much, much closer in, right? They lose by 13, 37-24. You take away those touchdowns and all of a sudden you're winning this game 24-23. And so, yeah, are they some world-beating defense? No. But I do believe that if the offense takes care of the ball and they work on the field position game, that they have an opportunity to keep this as a low-scoring contest and give Joe Flacco and the offense an opportunity to win this game late in the game and maybe make a late touchdown or field goal drive in order to really seal the win in Lambeau Field. And maybe that's my rose-colored glasses or my orange-colored glasses, I guess, if you want to say that. But the truth of the matter is that I have a lot of faith in Joe Flacco, despite what we've seen out of him. And I think that he is a good fit. And so for me personally, that it starts on the offense. And I understand that Jordan Love came into this season as a trendy MVP pick. And I understand that Josh Jacobs is certainly in the upper echelon of running backs in this league, but maybe I'm mistaken here, but I think that they have a good opportunity to make some noise on defense and maybe finally show that, hey, if the offense takes care of the ball and we're not giving the opposing offense the ball at the 20-yard line every game, maybe we can stay in the ball game for once, right? I mean, that they brought up the Denver game. Jake Browning did in his post-game press conference, but again, the offense did nothing in that game, right? So the defense did their job. They held the Broncos to, I think, 28 points in that one. I think that realistically, you could be looking at a similar story here against Green Bay, where if you can hold Green Bay to 24 points and this offense can do literally anything, all of a sudden you're talking at 7 o'clock Eastern that, hey, the Bengals have the ball and they're driving for a chance to take a win. And that would be a heck of a story for Joe Flacco to come in here and beat the Packers for the second time on the season. And send the Bengals home with a dub going into another pivotal stretch here with a couple winnable games for sure.
That certainly would be very exciting. I can tell you one thing, I'm more excited to flip on the TV today than I was a couple of days ago before making this move for Joe Flacco. He is Craig Sandlin, at Craig_Sandlin on Twitter. He's got you covered with a bunch of Chatterbox Bengals content, Chatterbox Reds content there as well. Actually, a podcast went out, premiered on the channel this morning. Him and Nick Kirby, they broke down Kyle Schwarber, among other things, Cincinnati Reds, as we kind of turn the page to 2026 for the Redlegs. Don't want to miss that. That's available wherever you get your podcast there as well. Craig, appreciate your time as always, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
You got it. Kyle Schwarber is not coming to the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, I saw your
in
tweet,
the chat that's trying to get that. That's not happening.
Yeah,
a guy who since 2017 hasn't had a full season under 26 home runs is not coming to the Cincinnati Reds as much as we'd all love it. It's not happening. Philadelphia's making everything they can do to keep him there on the Phillies.
Unfortunately, I believe you are correct. But, hey, it's fun to dream a little bit here over the course of these next couple weeks.
Bring the Hamilton boy home.
Reunite
Reunite him with Reed.
Right, exactly. 100%.
All
right, Craig. Appreciate you.